In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this fully lined tote bag. It's totally easy. Hi friends, welcome back to So Obvious. I'm Apolinar. Before we get started, if you have any ideas or requests for future videos or projects that I can teach new sewers, make sure you leave them in the comments. For today's tutorial, you are going to need the following supplies. Self fabric or the outer fabric for the tote. We're also going to need some lining, fusible interfacing. Any type of weight will work as long as it's not super flimsy. We're also going to need our fabric shears. We're going to be using pins. We're going to need some sort of fabric pencil, pen, or chalk. We're going to use thread. I would recommend for you to use a matching thread or a thread that's a shade or two lighter or darker than your actual fabric. I'm going to use black because it's going to show better on the camera for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to need our clear ruler, and we're also going to be using one safety pin. Okay, so we are going to start with our self fabric, which is the outside of the fabric. What we are going to do is we are going to use our clear ruler and our fabric pencil to cut out two pieces that are going to be 20 by 16. Okay, now when working with pencils, it's important to remember that you should be pointing your pencil towards the ruler to get as close to it as possible. I like to go up and down just to make sure that I can see the line. But always try and push it towards the ruler so that you're as precise as possible with it. And here we have our 16 by 20. Now we're going to cut it out. People always have this little debate about whether you should be cutting inside or outside the lines. I usually do right outside the lines as close as possible because the lines are part of the pattern. Now we have two rectangles, 20 by 16, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and we are going to mark 2 inches this way and 2 inches that way. So we're going to have a 2 by 2 inch square. So here is what we're left with. These notches are cut out here and over here, here and here. And now we are going to do the same thing here with the lining and with the fusible. So we're going to have 2 squares of 20 by 16 of the lining, 2 squares of 20 by 16 of the fusible, and then we're going to do this thing here where we cut out the 2 inches on each side. And since you already have the right measurements with the self fabric, you can actually use this as a pattern to make an outline for both the lining and the you can use it as a pattern for both the lining and for the fusible. Okay, so I got all 3 of these cut out. As you can see, my fusible is a little bit shorter than the other 2, but that's okay because we're really just using it to strengthen it up here at the top. The bottom doesn't need as much strengthening. So we're going to go ahead and use it like that. And then what we're doing next is we are going to cut out the straps. And when you're done cutting this out, you are going to repeat it with the lining and the fusible again. We need 2 of each. Okay, so now that we got all of our pieces cut out, we are going to go over to our iron and we are going to use the iron to fuse the fusible interfacing to our self fabric. The self fabric is the outside fabric. So I want you to look at your piece of interfacing and feel the two sides. One side should be smooth, like this one. The other one should have all these little bumps on it. That's the glue, that's the fusible part. I'm gonna take that part and make sure that it's the one touching the self fabric, because that's what's going to attach. If you have it facing the wrong way, it's going to attach to your iron, and you really do not want that. Okay, so here I have the straps. I have the self fabric on the bottom, the fusible on top, and you want the fusible, the bumpy side of the fusible, to be up against the wrong side of your self fabric. And we are going to press it. So pressing is different than ironing. Ironing, as most of you know, is when you move your iron back and forth. You might steam it a little bit. So pressing is different than ironing because you're going to put it down and you're just gonna push it, hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds. And now you're going to pick it up and move it to the next area. You do not want to move it back and forth because you run the risk of shifting some of the fibers in the weave of whatever the fabric you are using, and it could warp the fabric. Now usually for pressing you would press the steam button, and it would let out some steam to help relax some of the seams or the fabric wrinkles. But with fusible, you really don't want to do that because the humidity from the steam might make it hard for the glue to stick to the fabric. Now here we have them fused together. And now we're going to do the same thing with the self of the tote itself. Okay, so now we should have 2 pieces of lining, 2 pieces of self with the fusible already fused onto them, 2 pieces of strapped lining, and 2 pieces of self straps with the fusible already onto them. So we have a total of 8 pieces. Now that we have all these 8 pieces, we are ready to start doing some sewing. We are going to start with the self, so you can put everything else aside for now. And we're going to take these 2 pieces, and what we're going to do is we're going to put them right sides together. Line them up. We are going to pin them, and we're going to start with this seam down here at the bottom. We're going to pin it, and we're going to sew it at 1/2 inch all the way across. Okay, so here is the 1/2 inch seam allowance on the bottom. Now that we have that, we are going to come over to our iron board. We're going to press this seam open about as flat as possible. Push it open a little bit with your fingers. And then I'll put the iron on top, steam it, hold it for a few seconds. Now move up to the next section. Okay, so there we have the seam open. Now what we're going to do is press on the other side. Now that we have that seam sewn, we are going to fold this back up, and we are going to line up the side seams, sew them 1/2 inch, line up this side 1/2 inch. Then we're going to come back over here, we're going to press them open. To press open the side seams, you are going to basically slide this on here. far as you can. Finger press it open a little bit. And once you got that part done, you are going to take your iron and steam it. That's my cat. And there it is, it's open. Okay, so now we got all 3 sides sewn and pressed open. Now we are going to work on the corners. For the corners, what we're going to do is we're going to pull them open so that they're flat like this. We're going to pin them and then we're going to sew at 1/2 inch. Let me pin this and then I'll show you guys the other side again. So we have it kind of like an L shape. You're going to squeeze this corner, squeeze that corner, and pull them like that so that the L becomes more of a straight line. Pin it and then 1/2 inch. Okay, so the corners are sewn at a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our mini shears and we're going to cut into this fold here without going past the seam line. You're going to do this on both sides so that we can press the seam open. Now we're going to press the seam line as best as we can. It's going to be a little bit hard because of its placement, but it's doable. There it is. And then once we have these pressed, you'll see that we were able to create kind of a square bottom for the tote. So now turn it inside out so we can see. See, there is the square bottom. Push out those corners. So here's about what the size of our tote bag is going to be. The bottom is going to be nice and squared. So now that we have the outside all done, we are going to repeat the exact same steps for the 2 lining pieces. We're going to sew the bottom at 1/2 inch, press it open, do the 2 sides 1/2 inch, press them open. Then we're going to pinch the corners, sew across at 1/2 inch, press it open. Now here I have the self or the outer shell and the lining all sewn and pressed open. Now we're going to move on to the straps. So for the straps, what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 piece of the self and sew it to the wrong side. Sew them right sides together with a piece from the lining. And we're going to sew it at a 1/4 inch. Long ways, we're going to leave these sides open. Okay, now I have sewn the 2 pieces for the straps together. Now we are going to take a safety pin. This is a trick I learned online, on YouTube actually. And we are going to poke it through. I'm going to poke it through the self fabric because it's a lot thicker, so it's going to do a lot better. And what you're going to do is you're going to use that pin to turn the strap inside out. So you're just going to pull it through and start turning it. It might take a couple minutes, but it will work. When I first started sewing, it used to take me, no lie, about 1/2 hour to get these damn things to turn over. Now, it only takes a couple minutes. I'm so glad that I no longer have all those finger pains I used to get from moving my fingers so much. All right, it's turned over. Now we can take off this pin, flatten it out. And then once you have it flattened out, you're going to press it so that it's nice and flat. But before that, we're gonna turn over this strap as well. Okay, now that I have them both turned right side out, we're going to iron them and press them to get out those wrinkles and make sure they're nice and rectangle-y. Okay, now they're all both pressed, nice and flat. Now we're gonna go over to our sewing machine and we are going to top stitch at a 1/4 inch on both sides to help strengthen it a little bit. And it'll also make sure that the lining doesn't shift too much. Okay, so straps are top stitched and done. Now we are finally gonna put our bags together. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our salve outside in, or inside out. I don't know why I said outside in, that's weird. And we are going to measure 4 inches from the edge using our ruler. So 4 inches, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is where we are going to put this strap here. Make sure that the outside or the self is going to be against the self, otherwise you're going to be putting it in backwards. We're going to pin this in place. Then we're going to take our ruler again. We're going to measure 4 inches from the other end. 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. And we're going to put this strap right there, pin it in place. Now we are going to do the same thing on the other side with the other strap. We're going to take the lining and we're going to put it right side in. And we are going to match up the seam lines and pin it all the way along. And then once we are done pinning this, we are going to be sewing along here at 1/2 inch seam allowance, but we are going to be leaving about 4 inches of the seam open so that we can turn everything right side out. It doesn't really matter where you choose to leave the 4 inch opening. It could be here, it could be here. It's up to you. So we're gonna sew it at 1/2 inch. Okay, so here I have sewn at a 1/2 inch all the way across, left a little opening here. Oh, not it. Left a little opening right here, and we are going to turn the tote and, well, right side out. Don't pull too hard because you might rip the seam, and you definitely don't want that. So I do a little at a time. Try and turn it. A little bit more, turn it. But if you left about 3 or 4 inches unstitched, you should have no problem pulling it out without ripping it. Oh, just like I just did. So here we have it turning itself right side out. Give it a little shake. Push the corners out. Just a second, kitty. Make sure that these are on right. And now what we're going to do is we are going to press this seam to make sure that the lining stays on the inside. We're going to press it all the way around. So we're going to lay it down like this. Press and steam. We're almost done, guys. It's important to make sure you press the part that is not sewn. I forgot to turn off my air conditioner, so it's making all this humming noise in the background of the movie. Well, of my video, not movie. Okay, now that we have it pressed, we're gonna go back to our sewing machine and we're going to top stitch here at 1/4 inch like we did for the straps. Make sure to catch the open area that we left to turn around the whole tote. And now that we have the top stitching, all you have to do is give it another little press because it's going to be all wrinkly from pulling it inside out. And we're done. And here we have it, a fully lined tote bag. It's perfect for you to carry your stuff for work, fill it with snacks and go on a picnic, or sneak snacks into the movie theater because you're not made of money. And you could fill it with rocks and like use it as a weapon or something. The possibilities are endless, you guys. Okay friends, well that's all I have for you today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure that you like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, and leave a comment about what you had for dinner or your favorite color or anything. If you didn't like it, I mean, I'm sorry, I guess. You could like check out my Instagram. You might like that instead. Okay, bye.